Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links has changed Yu-Gi-Oh! Forever, and not just because of how successful it is. Duel Links has affected Konami as a company, but what I will be addressing is actually how Duel Links has affected how cards are released, what cards are printed, the idea that specific cards and decks in the Yu-Gi-Oh! TCG are made the way they are specifically to be printed in Duel Links, and some examples of this. So, in today's video, I'll be discussing Duel Links, the Yu-Gi-Oh! Trading card game, and how Duel Links has changed the Yu-Gi-Oh! Trading card game forever. So getting right into this, why are we even discussing Duel Links? Talking about the TCG is a completely separate thing from Duel Links. Why do we even care about Duel Links? Well, to give you an idea of why Duel Links is relevant to Konami and eventually leads to its relevancy to the trading card game, according to a Konami earnings report, Duel Links is the leading source of income for Konami. Duel Links is a cash earning machine. You can buy gems in order to pay for packs. There are specific sets that require you to pay cash in order to get the cards you need for a tier 1 deck. A perfect example of this are structure deck EXs. And there are other factors that just make Duel Links a very efficient money-making source for Konami, and making it the leading source of income for Konami when it comes to their products. An example though of how Duel Links has been applied to the regular trading card game is speed dueling. We all know speed dueling, it feels like it's a flop right now, it may become more relevant in the future, but the reason I bring up speed dueling is because speed dueling is based off of Duel Links. If Duel Links was so successful, why isn't there a second one? And well, speed dueling is the second Duel Links, at least for the TCG, it's the second coming of Duel Links. So clearly Duel Links has impacted the TCG in some way in creating speed dueling as a new variant of play for the Yu-Gi-Oh! Trading card game. Now you may be wondering, well, speed dueling is a completely separate format from the trading card game, right? How could Duel Links possibly affect the regular trading card game format? Well, I'm about to tell you, and let me analyze the competitive metagame of the Duel Links meta before we actually get into how Duel Links has affected the trading card game, just so you can start connecting the dots here and seeing what the metagame is like in Duel Links, giving you an idea of the relevancy of some decks in the game, etc. So some current top tier decks include Subterror. Subterror is a tier 1 deck that was just recently released in Duel Links. So the reason why Subterrors are relevant is because of Subterror Nemesis Warrior and the consistency it provides, along with some other cards, for example Golem Sentry. So Subterror Nemesis Warrior basically tributes itself along with another monster to set a Subterror Behemoth from your deck to the field, and so with that in mind there's a skill called Mass Tribute which special summons a monster, and from there you cannot normal summon or special summon for the rest of the turn. However, you can normal summon Nemesis Warrior beforehand, so you tribute both Nemesis Warrior and the monster you summoned, and from there you summon Subterror Behemoth Umastrix or Subterror Behemoth BladeYGO Kraken, and both of them are very powerful cards in Duel Links, being able to banish a monster or destroy set cards. So not only do you get easy access to your behemoths, but there's a card known as Subterror Final Battle, and Subterror Final Battle is very powerful because it will flip a set Subterror monster face up, also gaining you value because it can have other effects as well. Final Battle will keep setting itself. The deck is very consistent overall, surprisingly enough. So that's probably the best deck in the format. We have other decks like Blue Eyes, which you want to turbo White Stone of Ancients to the graveyard in order to special summon a Blue Eyes during your end phase, and you just steamroll advantage from there. We have Neos, which is a very relevant deck to today's discussion because of what I'll discuss later, but basically Neos is a deck revolves around Neos Fusion. There are skills in the game that enable you to get quick access to Neos Fusion. Basically, you lose life points, you get Neos Fusion to your hand. And so the whole entire premise of the deck is Neos Fusion is incredible in Duel Links. Even though you can't normal or special summon, that doesn't matter because you're getting a 2600 body that can recur another resource in the form of a follow-up Neos Fusion, making this deck very potent, and you basically are playing Neos Fusion control. And there are other decks as well. We have Six Samurai, we have Red Eyes, there are other decks like Synchrons. There's a varied amount of decks that do well in the game, and obviously it sounds very different from the TCG right now, where we have stuff like Danger Thunder Dragon, Danger Orcus, Salamangreat, Sky Striker, all of these different strategies, but there's definitely a reason why these decks are tier 1. Subterra and Blue Eyes are examples of prior releases that are successful in Duel Links that don't necessarily correlate to the idea I'm about to describe, but what does correlate to this idea is Neos. And before we talk about that, before I show some examples of this besides Neos, if you guys want to support my channel further than just watching this YouTube video and help me create videos easier and more on the way, go down into the description and support me on Patreon. This gets you exclusive access to content that I don't typically make into videos, like why you should buy Mech Knight Crusadia Avramax right now, or why Extra Foolish Burial has insane potential. Check it out in the card in the top right corner or in the description below. With that out of the way, let's look at some examples of TCG cards with the intent of becoming Duel Links cards. So looking at TCG cards that have eventually become Duel Links cards, but more specifically relating to this idea that Duel Links has created cards that specifically have the intent of going to Duel Links, let's look at an example like Psychic Wielder. Psychic Wielder is obviously a good level 3 extender in the TCG. It's good because it's a tuner and it gets you free value automatically. But what you may not have noticed is that this card has almost immediately gone to Duel Links after release in Savage Strike in the TCG. Now, you may be wondering, well, that's kind of weird. Why would it go almost immediately after the release of Savage Strike in the TCG? Well, you have to wait for the card to be released in the TCG because Duel Links is a worldwide release and not just OCG, TCG based. And so after the release in the TCG, Konami decided to release this in a box set in Duel Links. And so you may be getting the idea that Konami specifically made Psychic Wielder just so it could go into Duel Links as a card that would sell. Obviously, it's a secret rare in Savage Strike, making it even more wanted as a card in Duel Links. And honestly, there aren't really any other cards like Psychic Wielder in Duel Links, so it just makes Psychic Wielder that much more wanted. Well, let's also look at a TCG set like Dark Saviors. Dark Saviors contains Striker as a TCG relevant archetype, but it also contains For Hire and Vampires. And For Hire obviously had an impact on Duel Links immediately after it was released, almost after the release in Dark Saviors, becoming the best deck in the format. But we also had Vampires. Vampires also became a tier 1 deck in Duel Links and was released into Duel Links almost immediately after its release in the TCG. This is a very weird coincidence, but let me bring you to one more example, and that being Neos Fusion. Neos Fusion is a good card for Neos players in the TCG. Clearly, there's been support coming for Neos ever since the Mega Tins of 2018, after they received a new fusion monster, and then they've gotten a bit of support here and there, and eventually leading to support in Savage Strike, where we got a few new cards. The reason I bring all of this up is because after Savage Strike, we actually got new support for Neos in Duel Links, making them a tier 1 strategy, more specifically because of Neos Fusion. Now, you may be wondering, oh, Neos Fusion doesn't sound that great in the TCG because of the restriction of special summoning, and yes, this is true, but when we look at the Duel Links metagame, Neos Fusion was on a tear. So again, this coincidence trends to Duel Links, where it was released almost immediately after release in the TCG. And obviously this may be some coincidence. You may be wondering, it's just random that these cards came in almost immediately after the release in the TCG. But I want to stress that maybe it's not actually a coincidence. Maybe it's specifically because Konami is trying to sell Duel Links and they're creating these cards specifically to sell Duel Links. Remember, again, is the highest generating revenue stream for Konami. It's generating the most profit, and so they want to push this product even further, and to do that, they have to release cards in the TCG that specifically help Duel Links sell better. I always think it's interesting to look at Yu-Gi-Oh! In a different perspective, and really interesting developments that happen in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Trading card game. And because of Duel Links' success, that's how Duel Links changed the Yu-Gi-Oh! Trading card game forever. Thanks for watching.